Hello, my name is Paul Wilson. I'm a certified instructor of the Transcendental Meditation Technique in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'd like to share some slides with you about the TM technique. Transcendental meditation has been taught around the world since 1957, and over 10 million people have learned since then. Here in Indiana, it's been taught since 1969, and perhaps 10,000 people or more have learned since then. So it's been around a long time. And I'm going to, in this info session, talk about the who, what, and why of TM, give you an introduction. We're going to discuss an overview of the technique, talk about how it works, and give a summary of some key benefits. These are some basic points. TM is taught only by certified instructors, and there are about 500 of us across the United States these days. Here in Indiana, there are 3 of us. TM was founded in 1957 by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and he passed away in 2008. And in the 51 years in between, he worked night and day around the world to make TM available worldwide, to train thousands of teachers, create organizations to help him spread it. And basic points, TM is a simple, natural, effortless mental technique that you do twice a day, morning and evening, seated comfortably in a chair with your eyes closed. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to do each time. And let's go through simple, natural, and effortless, what each of those means. Simple means you can learn the basics of the technique really in just a matter of minutes. It's not like it takes weeks or months to learn. And it's something that we're able to teach to people who you might think would have a lot of trouble sitting down, closing their eyes, settling down, like children with attention deficit can learn TM. Military veterans with severe post-traumatic stress can learn TM. They do great with it. If I can teach people like that, I can teach pretty much anyone to learn. Natural means that it goes with the flow of life, which is always toward more and more. It's natural always to want more happiness, more knowledge, more peace, more fulfillment as time goes on. And we use that, even for instance, you're connecting in with me to hear this talk is an example of your mind seeking out something more. And we use that natural tendency of the mind in this technique. And because the technique is natural, completely natural, it's also 100% effortless to do. If you're putting even 1% effort into doing TM, you're really not doing it quite right. So my job as an instructor is to teach you how to do this, but also to get you to completely effortless practice as quickly as possible. And there's only one prerequisite skill that you need to be able to do TM. You just need to be able to think. Pretty much everyone can do that. TM is not several things. It's not a lifestyle. A bunch of rules and regulations you have to follow. It's not joining a TM club. It's not joining a religion. This isn't a religion. It's also not leaving a religion. This isn't a replacement for one. If somebody is Christian and they learn this, they're still Christian. Or if they're Jewish or Buddhist or Muslim or Hindu, none of that changes. It's not a belief system. You can be totally skeptical about everything you hear about TM. Doesn't matter. If you learn it, it still works. And there's been a lot of research done on the technique over the years, about 700 studies since 1970. And about 2/3 of those studies have been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals or presented at academic conferences where experts on those types of research have gone over them carefully, made sure they were properly done. So this is a personal service and applied expertise. It's not something that you can learn through YouTube videos or popular meditation phone apps or books. We take very good care of you when you come to learn. I'm going to talk about how TM relates to 3 big areas of your life. And we're going to start off with mental potential, the mind and the brain. Then we'll talk a little bit about physical health with the body, and then end briefly with social behavior, how we interact with other people. Starting with mental potential, this is a picture of an ocean, and we're looking at the ocean from the side in cross section. And up on the surface, you see the big waves rolling along, and it's churning and active. And then you dive into the ocean, and the deeper you go, the cooler and the calmer the water gets. And if you're a mile, 2 miles down with the Titanic at the bottom, even if there's a hurricane raging on the surface, you don't feel that. You're protected from it. And our mind similarly has layers. I'm going to add a little bit more to this picture now. So now this is your mind. And this surface layer we call the conscious thinking level of the mind, where all these waves are all the gotta's of life. Got to do this, got to do that, got to be here, got to be there. And while you're awake, this part of your mind pretty much never shuts down. It's active. Psychologists say most of us use only a fraction of our mind, maybe 5–10%. That's this surface active layer. But like in the ocean, you have a place deep inside you that is naturally quiet. And it's always like that. You may not feel aware of that or feel connected to it, but you carry that around inside you all the time. This technique gives you access to that. As you go through a busy day, maybe like today, you have thoughts, lots of them, maybe thousands of them, lots of little thoughts, a few big thoughts, and they add up pretty quickly. And we're going to consider one of those thoughts. Maybe I need to buy a loaf of bread. I need to put some gas in my car. I need to learn about TM. We're going to compare that thought to a bubble of air in the ocean. And when that bubble pops on the surface, that's when like, oh, I'm having a thought because it's up here in this conscious thinking level. But where was that bubble of thought before it got to the surface? Where was the thought before you thought it? Like a bubble in the ocean, that bubble started way down deep at a place I'm going to call the source of thought at the bottom of the ocean. And that little tiny thought started like a little tiny bubble down at the source of thought, and then it rose through deep layers of the ocean of the mind, and it got bigger and bigger and more developed, and finally popped on the surface, and then, oh, I'm having a thought. In TM, we kind of reverse that process. We have a thought that we're thinking while we're meditating, and we have a simple, effortless way that we're thinking that thought that enables us to experience that thought not just on the surface, but also at these earlier and earlier stages of its development, tracing the thought back to its origin, deep inside the conscious mind. In the process, you could say that we're expanding the conscious capacity of the mind from this limited 5–10% on the surface to more of the full range of the mind. Why on earth would you want to do that? Transcendental meditation is very practical. It's not about zoning out for 20 minutes twice a day. I don't know about you. I can maybe watch a funny online video for a little bit. Takes my mind off things, but it doesn't really change anything for me the rest of the day. TM is bigger than that. It's for development of enlightenment, full potential in life, which might sound like a really big idea. Most people who come to learn TM have maybe a little smaller goal like reduction of stress and anxiety, which is fine. That would be like you're in a little boat up on the surface of the ocean. You're being knocked around by the waves. What do? You drop a deep anchor down to that place deep in the ocean that's already peaceful, already calm. So you get some stability in that boat on the surface. And this is really a stepping stone along the way towards something much bigger, enlightenment, which I could describe in a few words as ultimate relaxation in life or effortless virtuosity in everything that you do because you're using more of your full potential. And it's a realization that that ocean of the mind is really a vast ocean of consciousness, and everything in life, everything you can look at, point to, touch, taste, smell, imagine, remember, experience is really a wave on the surface of that ocean. And the big reality is that you are the entire ocean. And you may be the ocean experiencing itself as one of those waves on the surface. But again, you're the whole ocean. And transcendental meditation helps wake you up to that bigger reality. And that source of thought deep in the mind, that bottom of the ocean, is a place with abundance. At that level, there's wholeness, balance, freedom, concentrated happiness, or you could say bliss, energy, intelligence, creativity, all very concentrated. And the surface of the mind, where all that's very limited, would love to be able to connect in with that. Maybe doesn't know how to do that. This technique is kind of like building a pipeline down to that level so you can tap into more of that, bring more of it up to the surface so you have more of that to draw from. And this source of thought goes by a lot of different names. In Christianity, for example, it's called the kingdom of heaven within. Even in physics and unified quantum field theory, there's a name for it. It's called the unified field of all the laws of nature, that according to physics is what everything in the universe, including you and me, comes out of. And we have that same unified field of consciousness deep within us at the source of thought. And that's really our big self, written with big capital S, not our little tiny self that's in that boat on the surface of the ocean. This has also been called self-realization. Now, all that might seem kind of abstract. Let's come at it from a different angle. Talk about the brain. Pretty much everyone has one. There's a very important part of the brain right up front called the prefrontal cortex that brain researchers call the CEO of the brain, the executive command center, and it's responsible for a lot of important things as you go through your life, like your alertness, your attention, focus. You're probably using that part of your brain right now, paying attention, decision making, creativity, self-control, morality, evaluation, and planning. That part of your brain is very heavily affected by stress. If you're being chased by a tiger, your body produces adrenaline, activates your muscles, you run, you get out of the way of the tiger. If you live in a place with a whole lot of tigers and all the time you're being chased by tigers, the effect of this long-term chronic stress is an increase in a stress hormone. It goes up in the bloodstream, and one of its effects in the body is that it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, puts it offline. And so you end up with this really lopsided brain functioning where there's a different part of your brain around here someplace called the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center, fire marshal, fight, flight, protective area. It activates in this stressful, dangerous circumstance. So you end up with like a washing machine that gets out of balance. Your brain just kind of gets all messed up. We call that being all stressed out. So here's the good news. In transcendental meditation, research has shown even a single 20-minute session can lower your plasma cortisol levels 20 to 30%. And this helps to wake up the prefrontal cortex, get it better connected in with other parts of the brain, quiet down the amygdala until the next time there's really some real emergency to deal with. So you're using more of the full brain, more integrated, orderly brain functioning. And with regular practice, that brain orderliness starts to carry over into the rest of the day. TM is like a surge protector for the brain and the nervous system, or like a hot iron for the wrinkled shirt of your mind. Helps you to become more resilient, so you're not even taking on as much new stress. That's talking about your brain. And a little bit ago, I was talking about your mind, really just two different ways of saying the same thing, two different ways of looking at the benefits of TM. Now, everything in your body, cells, tissues, organ systems, digestion, immunity, everything depends on what's going on in your brain and other parts of your nervous system. And talking about improved health, most of the research studies that have been done on TM over the years have been on the health benefits connected with TM. And I would like to show you two recent studies in recent years that have come out. These are published randomized controlled studies. The first one was in the American Heart Association's journal Circulation, 2012, looking at older African Americans at high risk for coronary heart disease, and that group was taught TM. And then there was a non-TM control group, and all the individuals in both groups were tracked for about 5.5 years. At the end of the study, the TM group compared to the control group had a 2/3 reduction in heart attacks, strokes, and death from other causes. 2/3 reduction. If a big drug company like Eli Lilly here in Indianapolis had a TM pill that you could take twice a day that would provide that benefit, they would have $1 billion blockbuster pill and everyone would want to take it. The pharmacies would run out of it. They don't have a pill like that. Even if they did, within a few years, somebody would probably discover some negative side effect. It would get yanked off the market. TM doesn't have negative side effects, it has side benefits. The other study was published in 2019 in the Journal of Nuclear Cardiology. If you have trouble getting to sleep at night, get a subscription to this incredibly boring journal. Read it before you go to bed. It'll put you out every night. But in this study, they were looking at PET scans of the hearts of cardiac rehabilitation patients getting standard treatment. When those patients added TM to their treatment, the PET scan showed they got 20% more blood flow to their hearts, lots of extra blood and oxygen. So TM is very, very beneficial for your heart and your circulation. In fact, the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology periodically issue joint guidelines on prevention and treatment of high blood pressure. In 2025, for the first time, TM was included among the lifestyle approaches in these guidelines that, taken together, they said are strongly recommended for all adults. TM is the only meditation technique cited in the guidelines specifically, with supporting evidence rated as moderate to high quality. Other forms of meditation and mindfulness practices were not included, they said, due to weaker supporting data. So this is good for your heart, good for circulation. By extension, pretty much every other part of your body that's been closely researched in connection with TM has shown similar kinds of benefits. So when you learn this, it improves even your behavior, how you interact with other people. You get a cooler mind, a warmer, happier heart, you feel better physically. These contribute to your appreciating the world around you more, for getting along with other people better. And then you make the mistake of turning on the evening news, and all the bad news of the world, stuff you couldn't even imagine yesterday, comes pouring out of your TV. What can you do? It affects your peace of mind. What can you do? You're one little person in this big world. You probably know that what you put out into the world, some of that gets reflected back to you. And if you're putting out good positive energy, if you have good inner light, you could say, that radiates out. Some of that comes back. And research has shown that TM improves our mood, improves our behavior, makes that inner light brighter. And again, some of this comes back. But then you have a bigger desire for a more peaceful world. And conventional approaches to creating a more peaceful world typically ignore the fact that the individual is the unit of peace and society. So these kinds of approaches that I call top-down, outside-in approaches maybe do things like drop bombs, sign peace treaties that aren't worth the paper they're written on. We do this stuff year after year, hoping that somehow this year we'll get a better result than we did last year or last century. Never happens, but we keep doing it year after year. TM instead is an inside out, bottom up approach. It helps to create peace at the level of the individual. So it's really a more realistic way to help you be the change you'd like to see in the world. And it's universal. It doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what your background is. It's something everybody can do, everybody can benefit from, recommend to everybody else. So, last point, because of this reciprocal relationship between the individual and society, they affect each other. Transcendental meditation is not only something good for you to do for yourself, but it really helps to create a more peaceful world on a realistic basis. And that's my entire introductory talk on transcendental meditation. If you're interested in knowing more, there's a second part of the talk called a preparatory talk that I would love to have a chance to share with you. Thank you very much.